So imagine this for a second. You're a legendary leader, Joshua. Your entire life's work is, well, it's almost done. You've brought your people right to the very edge of a promise that was made centuries ago. But you're old, and the biggest, most important part of the job, it's still sitting there unfinished. This is the spot Joshua finds himself in, and what he does next is a masterclass in leadership and, you guessed it, faith.
And this is the moment everything pivots. God's message to Joshua is incredibly direct, almost blunt, you are now very old. You can just feel the weight of those words. It's not a criticism, not at all. It's more like a sudden, urgent wake-up call. The final chapter is about to start, but the first move is something nobody would have expected.
Okay, so here's the twist. God doesn't say, Joshua, suit up, go win one last war. Nope. The command is to start dividing up the land. And get this, even the parts they haven't actually conquered yet. It's a wild act of faith, right? It's like drawing up the architectural blueprints for a skyscraper while you're still fighting for the land it's going to be built on.
This slide really helps break it all down. Think of Joshua as a project manager. On one side of the ledger, you've got the future. All that unconquered land west of the Jordan River. That's the to-do list. On the other side, you've got the past, the territory that Moses, his predecessor, had already secured. Let's start with that massive to-do list.
So this wasn't just about a patch of dirt. We're talking about an inheritance that, for now, existed purely as a promise. It was literally a map to a future that hadn't happened yet. A vision for the 9.5 tribes who were supposed to settle west of the Jordan.
And let's be clear, this wasn't just empty land up for grabs. Oh no. These were heavily fortified areas held by some really powerful groups. We're talking about the 5 major Philistine lords, key Canaanite regions, and the mountain fortresses of the Sidonians. This was a seriously intimidating checklist.
And here it is. This is the bedrock of the entire plan. Joshua wasn't being told to divide up this land and then just hope for the best. He was handed a divine guarantee. The instruction to start allocating came with an explicit promise that God himself would see the fight through. It's like the blueprint came with an ironclad warranty.
Okay, so that's the future. Now let's rewind and look at the part of the project that was already marked complete. Before Joshua even took the lead, Moses had already started this whole process, laying a foundation for the nation on the east side of the Jordan River.
So for these 2.5 tribes, the inheritance wasn't some far-off promise. It was their current reality. It was tangible proof of concept, It showed that dividing the land wasn't just a dream, but a process that was already well underway.
And this table here gives us the breakdown. Moses had led the charge against 2 very powerful kings, Sihon and Og. And their old kingdoms, well, they became the inheritance for these eastern tribes. Reuben got the plateau region, Gad took the towns of Gilead, and the half-tribe of Manasseh got the huge fertile kingdom of Bashan.
But, even in this finished part of the project, things weren't perfectly neat and tidy. The text throws in this really interesting little detail, that some of the original inhabitants were never actually driven out. It's a fascinating reminder that history is messy, and this whole settlement process was complex and took generations to unfold.
So we've got land that's promised for the future, and we've got land that's already been handed out. But there is one final really crucial piece to this whole societal blueprint, and it completely breaks the mold. We're talking about a tribe that was absolutely central to the nation's identity, but had no land to call its own. I mean, it's the big question, right? If your entire identity as a nation is tied to which piece of the promised land your tribe gets, what in the world happens to the one tribe that's left off the map entirely?
And the answer is just beautiful. The Levites were Israel's priests. Their job was to serve God and minister to the entire nation. So their inheritance wasn't a plot of land, it was a sacred calling. Their provision came directly from God through the offerings of the people. So instead of being isolated in their own territory, they were meant to be woven into the very fabric of every other tribe.
So when we step back and look at the whole picture, the land they'd won, the land they were promised, and even the tribe that got no land at all, what's the big takeaway from this ancient story? What does it all mean?
Well, this was so much more than just a real estate transaction. It was a national declaration of trust. By drawing these lines on a map for land they didn't even control yet, Joshua and the Israelites were physically and spiritually betting everything on the belief that God would keep his promise. They were building their future home before the foundation was even fully poured.
And really, that's the powerful idea that echoes down to us from Joshua's time. It's a question for any leader, any community, really any of us with a big vision. It asks us, what does it mean to step out in faith?
How do you organize your life around a future you can't quite see yet and trust that the promise is more real than the obstacles right in front of your face?